number one on this list is probably the LSU South Carolina game. That game was crazy. The last 20 minutes of it were quite intense. Go back and look at the ESPN win probability chart if you have yet to do so.
It's like an EKG, yeah.
It just whipsaws back and forth, man. It was crazy. What were your thoughts here on the Cocks? What were your thoughts on the Tigers?
On the Tigers, yeah.
On this game?
I was just thoroughly entertained, right? LSU goes down, 17-0 relatively quickly. The word I was trying to figure out, like, what do I think of LaNorris Sellers, right? Because he is not, he's a new starter. He's a creator. That's the word I came back to over and over, right? That he just makes things work. He makes things happen. Even if he's not going through 73 progressions every play, even if he's not running a very specific system every play, he just makes things happen. So he looked very good. Obviously, he goes down, he gets rolled up. I think his ankle was rolled up, but Rocket Sanders was going off. Obviously, the ends for the South Carolina defensive line were going off and getting to Garrett Nussmeier and producing a lot of pressure. The back and forth nature of this was super entertaining. Obviously, with South Carolina jumping on LSU early, I came away crazy impressed, and I told you this, with LSU's game plan and their patience, where they discover it's Caden Durham, the freshman running back, who was just a rock, right? He was just pounding through. I'm not trying to do Cinemax Saturday stuff anymore. I promise you. He was a revelation.
He's 5'9", 205. He's a freshman.
Yeah.
He is a bowling ball with eyes out there, and he ran really hard to the tune of about 9 yards per carry, had 2 touchdowns in this game, especially with John Emery going down with the ACL, especially with the way that LSU has run the ball through the first 2 games of the season. To find a guy who can go out there and be productive, I think was in and of itself a revelation. Of course, you want to win the game, but maybe having somebody now in the backfield that can give you a little bit more balance. You don't all have to put it on Garrett Nussmeier all the time. That could make this offense even better, and it's already a pretty good offense.
Yes. So I came away impressed with, both of these teams, obviously, with what South Carolina was able to do, especially on offense with the big plays and going downfield. And then LSU's patience running the ball, spreading the ball out. Garrett Nussmeier, really standing in, taking some hits, getting the ball to receivers. LSU's defense, for as bad as they were for stretches in the first half, tightening up a little. Obviously, LaNorris Sellers' injury sort of helps with that. It helps to contain South Carolina's offense when the quarterback is hobbled and on the sideline. When Robbie Ashford, I wanted to say Ashford, who we saw somebody joke that he sounds like he should be a striker for Everton or something with a name like that. And then the obvious thing that I haven't mentioned yet, which is the refereeing in this one.
Yes. So the cockscrewing. Talk to me about the cockscrewing.
I'm done with it, Ty. I'm done with Cinemax Saturday.
No, I know. Forward. Talk to me about the football.
I'm talking to you about the football. Okay, so we have basically 2 defensive touchdowns called back, one for a horse collar, one for hitting Garrett Nussmeier kind of away from a run back. We have obviously Shane Beamer's decisions late in the game with not calling a timeout as the seconds were dwindling, which I thought the excuse was kind of horrific.
Because he didn't want anything bad to happen? Was that the excuse that I saw?
It was basically like you have a timeout, you can use the timeout to get closer and set up an easier field goal. He decides not to, and he decides just to set up for the field goal and lets the seconds tick down because he was like, something bad could happen. There could be a bad snap. There could be a bad decision to run backwards and take us out of... I don't know. I hated that answer so much. Yeah. Like you have this team on the ropes. You're putting together this crazy potential victory with multiple quarterbacks and weird ways to win and surviving all these weird refereeing decisions. I hated that. But in terms of the referee, to me, the horse collar thing was super iffy. And then hitting Garrett Nussmeier. Look, if it's the letter of the law, it's the letter of the law. Who am I to say? But it just totally went against the spirit of those specific plays and why they were successful. And I just sort of hated the sort of ticky-tacky nature of how that game was called in the second half. And I don't know, it made the game feel cheapened to me a little bit.
Well, for what it's worth, no call on this Cinemax Saturday will top the targeting foul that was called in the Florida game.
Yes.
Earlier in the day.
I saw that.
We can maybe get to that a little bit later. I only have two really quick things to add. I think you did a pretty good job summing it up. But
Yeah.
on the point of the LSU game plan and how they remained kind of composed and didn't panic when they were down, the fact that they were able to pull off this win, the fact that we know the defense at this point still has flaws, the fact that we can just read the tea leaves and understand that LSU is going to be in a bunch more games like this.
Yes.
Throughout the course of the year. Winning this one on the road in a place like Columbia, South Carolina was, I think, a nice shot in the arm for them that they were able to pull this off. They came back from that 17-0 deficit, and it's not an easy place to play, especially with some of the momentum that South Carolina had going in. By the way, South Carolina, the other point that I have, I don't think smoke and mirrors. I think
no. If LaNorris Sellers is healthy, yeah.
LaNorris, the creator, let's be real.
The creator.
He definitely, by virtue of his injury, changed the complexion of this football game. There's no doubt about that. But I do think that the defense is for real. We talked about it in the preseason for a while that we thought the team would be led by defense. Defense showed up, I think, they gave up 36 points, but it's clear that there is talent on that defense that will wreak havoc on some lesser opponents. And I'm just curious to see, provided LaNorris, the creator, gets healthy, provided they continue to build that offense forward with Rocket Sanders, what it looks like between now and then, end of the season, because they've got a bunch of big games on the slate yet to play.
Buddy, they've got, I believe, Ole Miss and Bama in consecutive weeks to start October.
They do.
They also, so South Carolina to me and LSU to me in this moment occupy a similar space, which is they make their fans say things like, I am absolutely stunned watching this in both incredible and terrible ways.
I came away impressed with both teams.
Yeah.
If I'm being real with you.
I think definitely good for both of these teams right now. Definitely flawed in very specific ways. Definitely good.